Relationship issues?
Relationship talk
On 702.
So on our relationship and sex feature this morning, we are talking about your body's pathway to good orgasms. So your body's pleasure pathways. Do you know what those are for you? Like those pleasure spots in your sexual organs which can lead to an orgasm, a fulfilling orgasm. Right? Not a lot of people know, even men themselves, that they can actually experience up to 6 different types of orgasms. I actually made a mistake earlier. I said about 9 or so, but it's up to 6, which is still a lot, right? So exploring the sexual organs, your sexual organs, is not only about pleasure, but also about connecting with your partner. And it's a way to just truly know and connect with your body. I mean, we were taught how the body works, but not how it feels. And as a result, so many adults are only just beginning to understand that pleasure isn't limited to what we see in the movies. Like, you can have your own pleasure. So what is your pathway to sexual pleasure? Do you explore various ways to experience sexual pleasure? You know, or have you even wondered why some forms of sexual stimulation feel different? I'd like to hear you join this conversation to share your experience with us on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-7021-702. Lisa, thank you so much for making time for us. Lisa Welsh is a sex educator and founder of Save That Spark. We always chat to Lisa about these issues. She's always ready to educate us. And I'm so glad, Lisa, that once again today, you're going to help us understand our bodies much better. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. It is so great to be here with you, and I'm very excited to talk about this topic.
No, same here. Always love having you on the show. Now, as a sex educator, why is it important? Because that's where I want us to begin, to just lay the foundation for this conversation. Why is it important for people to learn their body's pleasure pathways? Because it's almost like we rely a lot on what we have seen in the movies. Some people, will rely on what they've seen in pornographic videos to then define what their pleasure pathways are.
It is so important. I mean, the main reason really is that we don't take the time to really learn the pleasure potential of our bodies. We're certainly not taught this stuff, and we're often shamed from exploring our own bodies through masturbation, for example. And what we do see, like you said, is something on the movie. And so we often try to kind of emulate what we're seeing, and we think that we should be responding in the same way to the people on the screen, whether that is pornography, whether that is a movie or something else. We just try to do what we see. Right. And so that means we're actually performing, and we think that we should be feeling good. And often it does feel good, but it's not necessarily all that there is. And it's really important that we do look outside of the box and don't just do what we see other people doing on movies, copying that and kind of getting into this rut of only being able to respond to pleasure with one particular kind of stimulation for many reasons. Because one is, why only have one chocolate when there's a whole box of chocolates to try? And second, what if there's a change in our life and something happens, or we age and we stop responding to pleasure? We stop responding to that one kind of stimulation. So it's really important to learn just how much we can feel and how good it gets to be.
Yeah. Do we even know how much, like, for instance, I mentioned earlier on about, all these different ways for you to reach an orgasm from what, sex educators or even sexual therapists normally tell us. There are up to 6 different types, for instance, of orgasms. Is that the same for every single one of us? Because I bet you there are people listening to us in their cars and their offices at home right now thinking, what do you mean? I only know of one.
Yeah. It's not exactly as cut and dry as saying there are 6 ways for men to have an orgasm and there are 9 ways for a woman. I've seen those numbers repeated and published, but it's not really the case. There are I would dare say there are possibly endless ways that we could experience orgasm, because people who have had spinal injuries, for example, can still experience orgasm through having something else touched. People can experience orgasm without touching their body at all. It's been proven in MRI scans. And there are lots of different places that we can touch and stimulate to experience an orgasm. But what makes it something that, one person has an orgasm from touching this and one person doesn't, is often practice. It's building the neural networks. It's having the open mind to believe that you really can. Like, seriously, if you don't think you can orgasm from having your nipples played with, then you probably won't. So everybody is different. We all have different, networks in terms of our nerves. But yes, there are some areas that are typical erogenous zones that we could experience more pleasure with. So we can definitely talk about those. But I don't want people feeling like, oh, if I don't have 6 distinct types of orgasm, there's something wrong with me. Because it's far more of a gray area than that, like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. So is it important then for people to understand what gives them a fulfilling orgasm or orgasm? And is it important to understand like vaginal and penile pleasure for sexual satisfaction?
Definitely. It's great to know the details of these beautiful organs and like to understand like what part of them could feel good and where there are like erectile tissue, for example. Like it could be good to explore this area. It might be nice to explore that one without feeling like you need to experience a whole different, distinct experience, different sensation from touching the A spot or the U spot or whatever. So we can talk about all of those, and some of them might feel great for some of us and others might feel meh, and that's really okay.
Yeah. So not a lot of people know, even men themselves, that they can experience all these different types in different ways. What makes male pleasure more complex than we often assume? Often when we talk about pleasure and orgasm and, where the pleasure points are for men, a lot of the men will say, I hear you when you talk about, the prostate and how to access that. And they often say, oh, I'm uncomfortable with that. And yes, you've got other men who, even heterosexuals will say, well, for me, actually, that's what gives me the pleasure. I love experiencing an orgasm from, that element. Why do you think that's the case? What makes male pleasure so complex? Because only now are more and more men only sort of figuring out, okay, this is actually how we can fully have good pleasure and really fulfilling orgasms.
I think for a lot of men, like it all centers around the penis and this idea that the penis needs to be hard and this idea that we must have friction. And, it's just the idea. We think that how could a man possibly experience pleasure and orgasms if he doesn't have a hard penis that is being given friction from some way or another, right? But the great news to all men out there is that they can have so much more than that, right? Their pleasure can include their entire body. They can experience like nuances and depths of pleasure that they may not realize, right? And the good news there is that they don't always have to be hard, for example. Like if a man is experiencing erectile dysfunction, he can still experience pleasure and ejaculate. Like for a lot of guys, they don't realize that that is possible. I have been working with guys who have erectile dysfunction permanently and experience orgasm and ejaculation through nipple stimulation. How incredible is that? Like, it blows my mind. So, okay, let's talk about what you've mentioned, like there are 6 kind of main types. So shall we talk a little bit about what those could be?
Yes, sure, please.
Brilliant. So we have like the standard kind of ejaculatory orgasm. So that is with the rhythmic contractions, usually created through friction on the penis itself. Then we have prostate orgasms, which are, as you said, they are through stimulating the prostate. We can talk more depth about that if you'd like. And that is an internal orgasm that can be reached anally. And that often is considered the male G-spot. And it can give what is said to be like a more full-bodied experience. Some men describe it as the pinnacle of male pleasure. You can then blend those two things to, I mean, I can't vouch for it myself, but yeah, people often report that this is like the gold standard of pleasure for guys. You can blend those two things because you can stimulate both the prostate and the penis at the same time. Another one of these orgasms can be something called a dry orgasm, where you have the rhythmic contractions, but there is no ejaculation at the end of it. And some people feel like that is a bit of a letdown, but some people will love it. You've got a full-bodied experience where you're having a more energetic orgasm and you're kind of working with like the sexual energy going through the body. Multiple orgasms, so that's when there's not ejaculation initially, and you train yourself to kind of separate orgasm from ejaculation. I mean, there's so many different things. You see why it's hard to limit it to 6.
And can you take us through like what are some of those are for women as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for women, we often expect that a woman should experience an orgasm through penetration. So anybody who has a vagina, we think that if you put something in it, then she's going to have an orgasm. But as we know, and people who listen to this wonderful pleasure section of your show, Clement, will know that the truth is women need clitoral stimulation. People with vaginas need clitoral stimulation. So the clitoris is essentially the equivalent of the penis. That is the pleasure center. It has erectile tissue. It has, some studies say, 8,000 nerve endings in just that tiny little bud that we can see. That is the part that requires stimulation. Interestingly, it can engorge with blood. It becomes erect like a penis, and it can then be felt through the vaginal wall. This is that mysterious G-spot. And then when it is stimulated that way, a woman can have a vaginal orgasm. Plus, there are other potentially orgasmic spots inside of the vagina as well, if you want to talk about those.
Please.
Okay. So it's like the alphabet, because the clitoris, the head of the clitoris is sometimes called the C spot. We also have the U spot. That is actually the urethra. That's where the urethral opening is. In other words, that's where a woman pees from. So it's a tiny little hole, and it's below the clitoris, but above the vaginal opening. So I give homework here to everybody with vagina to go and see if they can find their urethra, their urethral opening. Because interestingly, that tube is also surrounded by erectile tissue. It's part of the clitoral urethral complex, if you want to get scientific about it. But it can feel good to be stimulated. So with a clean finger and a bit of lube, you can stimulate that little opening gently. And for some women, that can be orgasmic. So that is the U spot. You have deep inside the vagina is the A spot. And that is like all the way at the back, kind of behind the cervix. Some people find cervical stimulation orgasmic. Some people hate it. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. And that's why it's important to take the time to learn our bodies and each other's.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a number of questions coming from some of our listeners. I've got some WhatsApps and some calls from some of our listeners who are sharing their experiences with us. 011 8830702 if you want to join this conversation. We're talking about the body's pleasure pathways. Have you found what makes you happy during intercourse? Have you found what makes you happy during a moment of intimacy? What are your pleasure pathways? Lisa Welsh has already taken us through a few. For you as a male, it could maybe be rhythmic construction. Maybe it is nipple play. Maybe it's when someone gives you oral sex, someone who goes down on you, whether you're female or male. Lisa spoke about prostate orgasm, stimulating that prostate, which is, Lisa says, that male G-sport, the golden standard. And then, of course, it could be many other things. For women, penetration, that clitoris stimulation, the G-sport, oral sex as well. What is it for you? that is a pleasure pathway? 011-883-0702. You can send your questions, by the way, to Lisa as well. Maybe you're still struggling to find that for yourself or your partner in your marriage, in your relationship. Send your questions as well on 072-702-1702, 22 after 11.
Relationship issues
Relationship talk.
on 702.
26 minutes after 11 o'clock. What are your body's pleasure pathways? What's that thing that really gives you a good, fulfilling orgasm? It's adult radio this morning, and we are in conversation with Lisa Welsh, who's a sex educator and founder of Save That Spark. And I've got your WhatsApp voice notes coming through, some questions as well, some calls. So let's start with this WhatsApp.
Good morning, Clement. Nice topic, man. Trust me. I fought with my wife until she gets it. If she touch my nipples, then it's game over. Yeah. Touching my nipples, then it's game over. Hi, man. I'm telling you. I love that thing, man. You. I don't know what's happening. It's like I'm in another world. Tango.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna say my name now. Only you will know because of my WhatsApp.
Don't worry. You don't need to say your name. So, Lisa, for this listener, it's nipple play. For him, he says his wife knows. Touch those nipples and it's game over. Hey, Lisa?
That is fantastic. I loved hearing that story. And if anybody's curious about trying that more and discovering their own nipple sensation, they can try just by playing with their nipples while they are stimulating their genital areas, or even using clamps. So you can get special clamps that and they look beautiful, some of them. Some of them are a little bit intense.
What are clamps?
But you clamp. So they're these toys.
Clamps.
You can get, they almost look like a pair of, clamps. You can use pegs if you're
like
really
pegs.
brave,
Oh.
Yeah.
Doesn't that hurt you?
But you can buy. Well, there's a line between pleasure and pain.
Yes.
That's a whole other pathway to find. But you can buy these beautiful clamps in any adult store in South Africa. So they look like tweezers, and then you put the nipple between them, and you kind of pull up this little piece that kind of tightens to where you feel comfortable.
Okay.
And then the real pleasure comes when you take them off again and the blood flow comes back, and then it can feel very sensitive.
Whoa, okay. Pecs and the nipples? Yeah, we learn, hey? We do learn. Here's another WhatsApp voice note.
Good morning, Clement and the doctor, as well as the lovely team. Clement, I have a question for the doctor. So me and my partner, right, when we about to, do the deed, during the foreplay, I might be a little bit explicit. During the foreplay, she loves it when I just slide the penis on the clitoris, back and forth. She ends up even climaxing, And then I am not yet, I haven't reached that state of climaxing. But what happens is that it also stimulates me when I do the insertion. I just like a couple of strokes and then I'm done. I'm not sure if she's satisfied by that or what, but she does climax before insertion. I'm not sure if she enjoys. My question is that does she also enjoy when after she climaxes and then I still, do the insertion just so that I can also, climax? Thank you. It's Pure and Rodipot.
Great questions, Pure. Thank you so much for that. And I know Lisa loves that question because she's an advocate of, orgasm doesn't only come through penetration. Lisa, your response?
Oh, I loved that question. You're right. And what a beautiful, sensitive way of putting it. I just want to be sure that just to say I'm not a doctor, I'm a sex educator. However, this is beautiful. So it's very normal for a woman to enjoy that kind of stimulation on her clitoris. Using the head of the penis like that is going to give a nice broad, smooth, frictionless, gentle pressure that she would love. So 100 points for that. And typically, most women would also enjoy to be penetrated afterwards, because once she has reached orgasm, then her vagina will be more ready to receive penetration. And so it won't be uncomfortable for her to receive penetration. It's very rare, like hardly ever happens, that two people have an orgasm at the same time. So don't worry about that. I always advocate for the women to come first. There's a book called that, She Comes First. Great that she's having an orgasm and then you're having an orgasm. It doesn't matter that you are not penetrating for long. That's absolutely fine. However, I can't speak for her. So it would be great. My top recommendation would be ask these questions to her. She would be so grateful, I'm sure, to hear that you're thinking about it in this way. Me giving you a general answer, I'm sure she's very happy. It sounds like a great
it
scenario,
sounds like she's happy.
Pleasure. Yeah, it sounds like pleasure for both of them. So, but yeah, always ask if you have any doubts, but it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much for that question, Spiwe. Okay, time for the headlines now. When we come back, some more calls and WhatsApps as we continue with our adult radio conversation. What are your pathway to a fulfilling orgasm? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note.
Relationship issues
Relationship Talk.
on 702.
22 minutes before 12 o'clock. This is Adult Radio. No kids allowed. We've been having a conversation this hour with Lisa Welsh, who's a sex educator and founder of Save That Spark. We've been talking about your body's pleasure pathways, those pleasure spots in your sexual organs or things that you do that really get you to have a fulfilled or fulfilling orgasm. For some people so far have said for them it's nipple play. I do have some questions around some guys who are saying, but how do you access that prostate, the G-spot that Lisa spoke about? And maybe, Lisa, we should start there before we go to some more calls and WhatsApps and some questions on the WhatsApp line. A question that came earlier on Twitter was, Lisa, you mentioned that G-spot, the prostate orgasm that can be stimulated. Someone wanted to know, how do you do that without, accessing it through penetration? Is that possible?
Good question. And it is possible. So the best way to try to access the prostate without entering the anus is actually with that area that is under the balls, between the balls and the anus, right? So that is the perineum. If you use a kind of firm pressure there, you should be able to stimulate that area. So you can give it a try. You can use your thumbs, maybe get your partner to give it a try, stimulate that area, see if it feels different, see if it gives you that feeling of maybe needing to pee a little bit. That is normal. So that is one way that you can stimulate it externally. I know that there's a lot of fear and shame around entering the anus. And so I just want to address that as well. A lot of the times when people ask, how can you do it without entering the anus? It's because of shame. So the shame is that it's dirty, and also the shame is that it means that you have a different orientation. Like we think, society on the whole thinks and has this myth that if a man wants to put something in his bottom, then he must be gay. And that is just not true. So I want to bust that myth. There are plenty of straight men who enjoy prostate stimulation anally and have mind-blowing pleasure as a result of that. So if you are feeling some shame around being curious about pleasuring this part of your body, then I encourage you to really take some time with that, to think about it. What does it really mean? How can it change your orientation or your masculinity, for example, to enter your anus? If you're curious about this part of your body, it is your body and you're allowed to explore it. Yeah. And if you like, Clement, I can talk a little bit about how to do that safely as well.
Yes, please do. And I wanted to say that, often we even have had women calling in and saying, my husband or my boyfriend, sometimes they do that. They stimulate that prostate. So that's something you can do with your partner too. So it's not like Lisa says, let's lock yourself in the room. You can have that with your partner and say, let's do this together. You do this or put this in or whatever. But normally women would call in and say, they do stimulate that prostate, their partner's or husband's prostate. Go on and explain what you wanted to get into, Lisa.
Great. You're right. Your partner can do it. Often I recommend for the very, very first time that you explore this area, it can be more comfortable to do it alone just because of the fear of, oh my goodness, what if there's poo there? So just so you know, if you have passed a bowel movement that day, you should be fine. And you can use a douche, which is where you kind of put warm water into the area and then expel it. You can buy a douche for that reason if you're worried. But to actually access the prostate anally would need patience and a lot of lube. So you can use a clean finger that has got a trimmed fingernail and very slowly massage the outer rim of the anus and allow the body to relax and then gently apply pressure. There are actually 2 valves that need to relax. So you really need to take your time and let yourself get used to the feeling because it doesn't have to hurt. So you can either use a finger or a toy with a flared base. So that is a toy that is designed to go in the butt. Nothing else, because things can get sucked in. We've all seen those photos on Facebook of guess what the doctor had to remove from this x-ray. So if you're using a toy, make sure it has a flared base, go slowly, use lube, and allow your body time to relax and kind of acclimatize to that sensation.
And guys that have tried that, please share your experience with us. Maybe as a wife, as a girlfriend, maybe you have done that with your partner. Please share your experiences with us. Someone on the WhatsApp line, in fact, still on this, says, "Hi, Clement, please keep me anonymous. In 2022, I dated a woman who used to lick my anus. At first, it was uncomfortable, but I would enjoy it more when we're drunk. Unfortunately, we broke up, and my current woman doesn't do that, and I don't know how to tell her to do it to me." Any advice, Lisa?
Yeah, rimming, analingus. It's something, again, that is enjoyed by many, but it has so much fear and stigma around it. Because how do you say, oh, please, could you lick my anus? However, it is enjoyed by many people. So I would suggest bringing it up, in a moment when you're both very relaxed, and maybe just ask your partner how she would feel about having that part of her body stimulated. Suggest that you are curious about having that part of your body stimulated. You don't necessarily have to say, oh, my ex-girlfriend used to do it. That might bring up some feelings. But, after a shower, after a bath, maybe you're playing together and you just start to explore and invite exploration of each other and just say, your body is wonderful to me. There's no part of you that I find disgusting. And I would really, be curious to see how this feels and, make it like a collaboration and an exploration together. But yes, for some people it is a limit and they're not willing to try. But yeah, it's worth having a conversation and taking it in baby steps.
Yeah. There are some messages here that have come through. One says, "Hi, Clement. Why does it take some women so long to be stimulated? Please, can you ask Lisa there?" So, Lisa, that's the first question. Another one says, "Hi, Clement. You're speaking to Dumiso from Strand in Cape Town. I have a question for your guest. Is there any significant importance to sexual positions? Is it advisable to perform as many sexual positions as possible?" That's another question. And then another one says, "Hi, Clement. I'm a toy girl. I'm all for foreplay, exploring new techniques. My neck is the most sensitive to be tongued. So please do that. Otherwise, most of my body is sensitive. Please spank and whip me. I live for that." That's a message there from Peaches. Can we get you to respond to those 2 first questions? And I'll go to some more WhatsApp voice notes and some text as well.
Great. So why do women take so long was the first question.
Yeah.
So women take longer than men. It's true. They just do. That's because we need to get the clitoris engorged fully, and it just physically, biologically takes longer. That's the truth. So men usually can ejaculate quite quickly, like sometimes 3 minutes, and they're often trained when they're growing up to masturbate quickly and quietly, and they can often ejaculate quickly because of that. Women are not. They're discouraged from masturbation, and when they're with a partner especially, they can feel a lot of things, right? They can feel pressure that they're taking too long, even though biologically they need about 20 minutes. They can feel like, oh, what if I look embarrassing in this position? What if he's getting bored? Like, all of those thoughts and feelings can completely get in the way, right? So a woman can shut down and not be able to reach orgasm purely because she thinks she's taking too long. So if we all just know the truth, it does take longer for a woman to experience orgasm, and let's just give her longer. Don't rush it. Enjoy it. And let her have that build up. So that's the first one. The next one was positions.
Yeah.
Do positions matter? And should we try as many positions as possible?
Yeah.
So positions do matter. And the reason for that is that, as we've mentioned, there are all of these different erogenous zones and spots that feel good. So if we can find a position that gets the right amount of friction on the right spots, that is what we want. So, for example, a lot of women will experience orgasm when they're on top. And that is because they can get friction on the clitoris, right, when they're grinding. And they can also get the angle of the penis the way they want. So they can control the depth, etc. So that's why cowgirl position can be great. And then there's the whole reason of like, how big is the penis? How deep is the vagina? Like, where are the particular zones on the particular person? For some couples, doggy might be great with their particular anatomy. For others, it might be better to do like missionary. So it's not about trying 100 positions. In fact, that could be quite disjointed. But practice together over multiple sessions and see which positions hit the best spots and feel great for you. And then discuss it. Say, whoa, in that position, I really loved it when X, Y, and Z. So you're going to have a debrief. And that's sexy because then that gives you information that you can use the next time.
Some of the messages.
And
then, sorry, finish
Yeah,
up.
carry on. I was going to say the last message there about loving to be spanked and whipped is great because that listener is discovering that she enjoys that kind of borderline between pleasure and pain and being a little bit kinky, because some of our pleasure pathways come through our mind. We've got all of these different erotic blueprints. And so perhaps she has a kinky blueprint. She enjoys a bit of pain, a little bit of taboo, and that's her pleasure pathway. So it's a whole other thing we haven't spoken about.
It's 12 minutes now before 12 o'clock. We'll come back and continue this conversation after this.
Relationship issues
Relationship Talk.
on 702.
9 minutes before 12 o'clock. We're just about to wrap up our conversation with Lisa Welsh, who's a sex educator and founder of Save That Spark. It's adult radio, and we've been talking about your body's pleasure pathways. Some messages that have come through here. Anonymous says, hi Clement, my partner, while she is on top, I'm able to stimulate her clitoris and she massages my perineum. We both are open and are not into anal penetration, but communication is key as well as trust. Another one says, hey Clement, please keep me anonymous. Oh, I've read this one about a partner back in 2022. Another one says, Clement, this is anonymous here. I'm worried when I hear about the anus. Isn't that for exit? Should it be used for entry? Wouldn't that be damaging? Please ask Lisa. Lisa, response?
So, yeah, good question. And it's something that a lot of people worry about. And for some people, it is just a no-go and they only want it to be for exit, and that is okay. There's no stigma on if you don't want to do it. That's 100% everybody's individual choice. But it does not have to be damaging, especially if you take the steps that I suggested, that you're going slowly, you are using a lot of lubrication and patience, so you're breathing. Lots of people stimulate the anus and have anal penetration every single day of their life and love it and don't have any, adverse effects. So yeah, just don't use a toy that isn't flared at the bottom and don't rush. It should never hurt. That's what I would say.
Yes, and then Tebogo says, hi Clement, is there a difference between coming and climaxing? That's a question from Tebogo. I want to add there, Lisa, and ask you to also explain that difference between an orgasm and ejaculation, or is that the same thing?
Yeah, so lots of people do think they are the same thing, and that's because with men, they normally happen at the same time. So you normally experience the orgasm, which is the physical experience and the rhythmic contractions of the pelvic floor and that hormonal release and feeling really good. And then ejaculation is semen being expelled from the penis, right? So those things normally happen all together. But many men have, over time, with practice, learned how to separate those two things. And it can be done with practice, through edging, through learning about your body's arousal process. You can actually separate so that you can have multiple orgasms where you don't ejaculate. Because if you ejaculate, then it's all done for a while. We have a refractory period. A man can't just do it again, like a woman can just have another orgasm. But if you separate those things, then yes, it is possible for a man to have multiple orgasms without ejaculating until he wants to.
Yeah, and then somebody else says, Clement, please ask Lisa, I have the boring standard sex with my husband all the time. What advice does Lisa have for us to try new things so we can find these pleasure pathways?
You know what? It's okay to have boring standard sex. So let's just say yay for boring standard sex. You're doing it and that's huge. And I hope that you're still enjoying it in some respects. But what we can do is listen to what that other listener said. They're like stimulating multiple things. He's touching her clitoris. She's touching his perineum while they're having sex. So do that. What feels good to you when you're on your own? What feels good to him when he's on his own? Can we bring those things into the bedroom? Can we stimulate areas? Can we add a nipple stimulation, add an ice block, add a toy? So it can be literally sprinkling in these little things can elevate so that we don't feel like it's the same old, same old. It does really start with communication. I mean, I don't want to go down that whole, we need to communicate, but it can be as simple as, what do you feel in the mood for today? Are you available for a quickie? Or would you be open to a full body massage and me dripping candle wax? So having a menu of options and being open to asking for things, being open to hearing requests and considering them without just shutting them down. So if we want to try different menu options, then we need to consider that we might have to taste something that we're not sure about initially in order to learn about our pleasure potential. We might find new pathways, whether they're mental, like kinks or different kind of mental excitements, or a new physical part of our body that we actually enjoy being touched that we didn't think that we would.
Yes. And then someone else said, hi, Clement, I really enjoy the intersection of pain and pleasure, but I always struggle with the psychology of it. Why do I enjoy the pain that comes with that pleasure?
That's a really powerful question. And, we don't always get to understand that. We could go to a therapist and try to unpack it, or we could just accept that, I kind of enjoyed that pain. How do I feel about that? Using aftercare, after sex to debrief with yourself and get, come to terms with that. It's not uncommon for people to experience a big emotional outburst after experiencing pleasure in a way that maybe they have morally wondering why do they enjoy that? So this is not uncommon. And I would just really encourage this listener to take some time to think about it and sit with themselves and give themselves grace. A lot of people do enjoy some degree of pain. It doesn't say anything bad about you. It doesn't mean that you need to be fixed or anything like that. But if you are worried, then a sex therapist or a psychologist who is skilled in this area could help you to unpack that.
Yeah. 3 minutes now before 12 o'clock. Lisa Welsh, sex educator, founder of Save That Spark. Thank you so much for always joining us for these fascinating, insightful conversations.